The day after I graduated from college, I boarded a plane for Nepal, and for 3 weeks I hiked to Mount Everest Base Camp. It was an incredible journey, walking through these deep valleys, up these beautiful mountain passes, and standing atop mountain peaks. There's really nothing like standing on top of a mountain with the sun on your skin, the wind in your face, and all of life just laid out before you. In many ways, life is like a mountaintop experience. From graduating from high school, college, getting married, having children, or that job promotion. It's those moments in life that awaken our soul and we just scream out, "This is what I live for." But then it happens, those moments never last. And before you know it, you're in the valley again, looking for that next peak to climb. If we were to just take a moment and be completely honest with ourselves, we all feel it. Deep within us is this desire for more. This longing to know what's really worth living for. In the valleys of my life as a teenager, I attempted to quench this desire in me with drugs and alcohol, but it never satisfied me. It only left me broken and longing. I've noticed that people attempt to quench this desire in them with sex and pornography and power, you name it. But it never satisfies. It only leaves you broken and longing. The older I get, the more I realize how creative we become to fill this need we have for meaning. It is so easy to get caught up in living for success, wealth, and leaving a legacy, until one day you realize these things are incapable of satisfying us. I mean, there's always more to succeed at, more wealth to acquire, and there's always somebody greater than you. These things will never satisfy us. St. Augustine was a Christian thinker from the 4th century, and he wrote that the heart of man is restless. And that makes sense to me. As I climb yet another one of life's peaks, I am restless to understand my place in it all. I constantly find myself asking, what should I be living for? Why am I here? Have you ever considered that if you can't satisfy your desire for meaning, it's because we've been looking in all the wrong places? Perhaps we exist for a meaning far greater than anything we can manufacture. This question led me on a journey. In time, I learned that things don't have meaning in and of themselves. Persons give things meaning. This is because meaning is a quality of personhood. As artists, composers, and authors, that's what we do. We endow the objects of our creation with meaning. I mean, have you ever considered how an artist smears color on a canvas with intent? A composer arranges waves of sound with purpose, or an author weaves meaningful words into a story. Endowing things with meaning is at the very heart of the human experience. It's what we do, it's what we understand, and so naturally, it's what we long for. Because we're able to give things meaning, we're tempted to give ourselves and the whole of life meaning. But the problem is, it only brings temporary relief. It never fully satisfies us. It's important to remember that we didn't create the universe, nor ourselves for that matter. No one has brought him or herself into existence. So how could we possibly know the meaning of our lives? In time, I came to believe that humanity was created for a purpose, and that life does have meaning capable of satisfying us. Where did I find it? Like all meaning, with the author. In this case, the author of life, God. Now, I understand that not everybody believes that God exists, and we'll deal with that question in the next session. But for now, it's important to understand that if God does exist, then there is meaning and purpose to discover. Now, you might be wondering, where do we go then to find the author of life? How do we get an audience with God? I believe it makes the most sense to begin with Jesus Christ, and here's why. Nearly every worldview incorporates Jesus at some level. If you're a Buddhist, you may think of him as enlightened. Or if you're a Muslim, the Quran says that Jesus is a great prophet. If you're an atheist, you may think of him as a moral teacher. However, Jesus claimed to be much more than that. He claimed to be the author of life. More than that, he gave an answer to the meaning of life that you can experience for yourself. It means then that Christianity is testable. You can study and experience it for yourself and see whether or not it's true. Jesus gave a very simple yet profound answer to the meaning of life, found in two dialogues in the Bible. They're both found in Mark chapter 12, and the first one is about paying taxes of all things. Jesus has just come back into Jerusalem, and the religious leaders there want to stop Jesus. They want to diminish his influence. So they ask him this question in front of the crowd. Jesus, they said, is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not? Should we pay or shouldn't we? Well, this is a fantastic setup. You see, if Jesus says, yes, pay your taxes to this foreign oppressive government, well, then Jesus' Jewish followers are going to be upset. They don't want to pay their taxes to the Romans. But if Jesus says, don't pay your taxes to the Romans, well, then this foreign oppressive government is going to be upset with him, and Jesus is going to be arrested by the Romans. Realizing the trap, Jesus instead asked them a question. He asked them to give him a coin that they would have used to pay the Roman tax. So they brought him a coin, and Jesus held it up before them, and he asked them, whose image and inscription is on this coin? Caesar, they replied. Well, then Jesus said, well, then give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, but give to God what belongs to God. Now, the Bible records that those that were listening to him were amazed by his response. More than that, they were convicted. And I've often wondered what was so amazing about his response. Upon further reflection, I realized it wasn't what Jesus said, but what he implied. You see, what exactly belongs to God? Well, we know from the story the same thing that belongs to Caesar. You see, the coin belonged to Caesar because it bared his image. See, the Jews understood exactly what bared the image of God. We do. The Bible starts out in Genesis telling us that God created the heavens and the earth, but also that he created people. More than that, he created people in his image. And Jesus was challenging them to give the author that which belongs to him and to live for the purpose he created you for. A little bit further into Mark chapter 12 is the second dialogue. One of the Jewish teachers that was listening to Jesus was impressed by his words and really wanted to press Jesus on this question. So he asked him the Jewish equivalent of what is the meaning of life. He asked Jesus, what is the greatest commandment? And Jesus said this, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." Basically, Jesus was saying that there's only one God, only one author to life, and it's not you. And then he went on to say those famous words, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. The meaning of life, according to Jesus, is simple: relationship. You were created to know and to be known, to love and to be loved. Everything comes down to this. Jesus continually taught that God loves you and that you were created to be in an eternal, perfect relationship with both God and people. This is the message of the Bible. Remember St. Augustine, who said that the heart of man is restless? He went on to say that the heart of man is restless until we rest in God. The reality that Jesus taught is that only God is capable of satisfying you. Jesus' answer means that all of life is infused with meaning, both the valleys and the peaks, when we walk with the author of it all. This series seeks to show that Jesus' answer to the meaning of life corresponds to reality, and that it's able to make sense and give meaning to the tough questions of life. In the next session, we're going to wrestle with the question, does God exist?